Hello everybody and welcome to Insider's Guide. Today we're discussing the resort that very few Denverites have heard of, but all Denverites should know of, Snowy Range. Snowy Range is accessible to a very large population, and we'll discuss who all should consider Snowy Range, why, and then what to expect when you visit in this video. So with that, let's begin. An Insider's Guide to Ski Resorts, Snowy Range. Now, in all honesty, there's lots to hate on at Snowy Range, but I simply can't justify doing that to such a small, family-owned hill. So all I'll say is that it's an awesome learning mountain, but skippable for advanced skiers. Let me make it very clear that this mountain is not like nearby Colorado resorts. It is very much a Midwest caliber hill with Rocky Mountain snow and trees. As such, this Insider's Guide is primarily going to be catered to beginners and learners. More advanced skiers can and should stick to Colorado. Snowy Range is awesome for one specific group of people. That group consists of students at both Colorado State and the University of Wyoming. Snowy Range is super accessible for both and offers lift tickets for about $60 on peak days and less on non-peak days. It is a couple dollars cheaper if you purchase a ticket online ahead of time, so I would recommend doing that. Additionally, most people bring picnic lunches, which I would also recommend doing because the food honestly isn't that good. Most resorts won't let picnickers eat in the lodge, but Snowy Range is an outlier and part of what makes it good. Additionally, rentals are relatively cheap if you don't already have your own equipment. Be sure to bring or rent a helmet. I can't stress enough how important a bucket can be, and it's really not that hard, people. But regardless, if you are a broke college student at those two universities and desire to go learn to ski, the friendly atmosphere, mild terrain, easy accessibility, and cheap price of Snowy Range makes it an ideal option. Additionally, for families living in the Cheyenne, Laramie, and Fort Collins areas, Snowy Range can be a great place to take the kids to teach them to ski. One of the times I've been there, I saw some kids building a jump on the edge of the run. Ski patrol at any other resort would never let that fly, so that's something else I like about Snowy Range. As a whole, Snowy Range is a mild mountain. Its runs aren't as steep as that of other hills, but for some reason its trails feel much narrower overall, and it's often impossible to overtake on certain runs. As such, in this video, when I say something is steep, it is only steep compared to other runs at Snowy Range. Trust me, the runs at Snowy Range can't even compare to the nearest other ski area, Steamboat, and I wouldn't say that Steamboat is an overly steep mountain either. Snowy Range's runs are significantly shorter than runs at other resorts in the region. They don't groom many of their blacks, so there is alright ungroomed blacks, but the resort is severely lacking in tree skiing. While most ski areas offer the ability to duck into the trees between most runs, Snowy Range has very little of that, so I'll be sure to point out the places where it is possible. As a whole, the forest is just insanely dense. Signage isn't great, as signs are small and typically in really odd locations, like 10 meters to the right of the actual trail entrance. The snow at Snowy Range is pretty solid, but it tends to have this weird cycle where it gets a big storm, then gets sunbaked and is just horrible for a week, and then gets another massive refresh. You'll notice that the lifts stop and slow often just due to the sheer volume of people who fall getting on or off the lift. That is, of course, the result of being a beginner mountain, as is the absolute chaos in lift mazes, the sheer lack of helmets being worn, and of course, the awesome vibe. It's just so much friendlier than other resorts, and despite it not having a ton of terrain I am particularly fond of, I still really enjoy skiing Snowy Range. Snowy Range has 3 primary parking lots, all of which are reasonable walking distances. You'll need to get to the resort relatively early on peak days to ensure you get in, especially if it's a powder day or the day after. Getting tickets can be a pain because their pickup machines are often out of order. It has taken me up to 30 minutes in the past just to get my ticket I bought ahead of time online. Generally, due to its remote location, Snowy Range doesn't see any crowds or lift lines. However, certain peak days can bring out up to 10-minute lines, which really isn't all that bad in the grand scheme of things, but is certainly longer than one would expect for such a small ski area. Lift lines overflow out of mazes on the worst days and look really bad, but trust me, they're really not. Just stand your ground and make sure you keep surging forward or you won't get anywhere. Despite those few bad days, if you're looking to avoid crowds, Snowy Range is a great place to do so for a vast majority of the year, and unless there was just a huge storm, weekends and holidays are still usually just fine. Now, let's finally talk about the mountain. When I say lookers right or left, that means right or left on the trail map, and skiers right or left is opposite of that, how the skiers see things going down the hill, so skiers right is lookers left, and so on. These 3 lifts out of the base are all double chairs, and combined, they have a decent capacity. Virginian only runs on weekends and holidays, but all of Virginian's runs can be accessed from chute. However, from Virginian, you can only access this stuff from Cheyenne and Looker's Left. As such, on the busy days, Chute gets longer lines than Virginian. When Chute gets busy, due to some very poor maze design, the lines closest to the lodge move faster than the lines going up the hill, so just remember to go lodge side rather than slope side. Pioneer is just the Bunny Hill lift, but it's also technically the most efficient way to get to Sundance. It runs extremely slow given that it's the Bunny Hill lift. This magic carpet, the Colt, is where you should start if it's your first day ever skiing, and then you can progress to Pioneer after. On your first day of skiing, you should not go anywhere other than Pioneer. In all honesty, there's not much to discuss as far as lifts go. So, let's begin at the far right boundary with Rustler. Just past Rustler, the trail map shows some trees that are open, and while they do exist, they're so incredibly tight that they're nearly unskiable. Rustler is one of the only true well-developed mogul fields you can find at Snowy Range, and ergo is one of the hardest runs at Snowy Range. The actual mogul sections are decently steep, but they're certainly very short. This Autobahn is actually a decent length of catwalk, and it is very flat. You will be pushing or unstrapping, so be prepared for that. At the bottom is the terrain park on the skier's right of Little Buckaroo. The park isn't going to set any records, but it has a couple of rails boxes and or jibs, and one decent-sized jump. When I've been to Snowy Range, Rattler has been groomed, but the website claims it to be a mogul run, so I'm not going to definitively say one way or another. Laramie, Overland, and the Chute are also mogul-ish runs, although it seems like they get groomed every here and there to prevent them from getting true moguls like Rustler gets. The Chute is relatively narrow, but it has a nice flow to it. However, for some reason, the Chute ends up having the highest proportion of people overskiing their abilities, and I suspect it's due to the prospect of getting to show off under the lift. If you must hit the Chute, the Looker's Left entrance is more daunting, so I would recommend entering from the Laramie side. Looker's Left of Chute is the area with the best blues in the resort. Crow's Nest is a narrow groomer that leads to Cheyenne, a wider groomer, and Calamity Jane, which isn't groomed as often. Odin and Opal seem to get rotating grooming, and if you want to get to Cheyenne from the Virginian chairlift, you'll have to take Opal and then cut skier's left. Odin and Calamity Jane are not accessible from Virginian. For those of you who are tall, and I'm talking like 6'5" and above, watch your head if you exit left off of the Virginian chair. The Virginian blue is the most popular blue at the resort, but it's also the widest. Gunslinger is sometimes closed for a race course, but other times is a nice alternative to the busy sections of Virginian. Rawhide is very narrow for a blue, but it's also the mildest of all the Virginian area blues. As you can see here on the map, there is no way to directly access Centennial from Upper Drifter. You'll have to go a couple meters down directly underneath the Virginian chair to access Centennial, or you can get on it from Rawhide. Centennial is insanely, excruciatingly flat. It's a narrow little road for the entire upper section, and despite it being a nice escape from crowds, to be honest, the only purpose I can find in it is to access Gun Barrel. Gun Barrel is the best, the most fun, the hardest, and also the most dangerous run in all of Snowy Range. It is a narrow little gully through the woods that is decently steep, especially after it crosses Rawhide, and offers very minimal room to turn along with many blind corners. However, the twisting and turning with high sides requiring a quick pace and reflexes makes it my favorite run in all of Snowy Range. Visibility coming into the Rawhide crossing is minimal, which can make the area very dangerous as well. It does have a decently flat run out at the end, so be prepared for that. I love it, but if you're a beginner looking to challenge yourself, please stick to eating it as you try to show off on the Chute. You legitimately could get hurt on Gun Barrel, but for more experienced skiers and riders, it's so much fun. Another super fun run is this blue, old 30 meter, which really should be a black. It doesn't have a sign, but as you come down Rawhide, you will be able to find a pretty well-packed trail through the trees on the skier's right of the trail, just after it curves to the left. This leads you into a steep, narrow run that has minimal room to turn, similar to Gun Barrel. Both Gun Barrel and Old 30 meter maintain some of the softest snow on the mountain. Upper Drifter is better than Centennial, but still flat. It is also much busier, so I still try to avoid it. Lower Centennial gets rather busy because it is the main egress from the Sundance pod, which we'll discuss in just a sec. You can get to Warpath from Lower Centennial, but it requires a bit of an uphill traverse, so I'd recommend just skiing all the way down and taking the Pioneer lift up to access that trail. Now, finally, over at this far left boundary, you have the Sundance pod. Sundance is the mountain's only triple chair, and it serves a load of good blues. Because of this, on those busy days, it gets the longest lines on the mountain. Do beware, however, that the entire Sundance pod is both at a lower elevation and more prominent to the sun, so the snow typically isn't as good in Sundance as in other areas. The grooming of the Sundance pod is typically relatively limited, with only Roundup, Seminole, Arapaho, Great Escape, and Middle Drifter being groomed every night. Don't worry, I'll still tell you which is groomed as I go run by run. There are 2 ways to exit this terrain, Roundup and Blackfoot. Roundup is pretty flat and busy, but Blackfoot is legitimately uphill. Just don't even try. The only reason you would ever want to take Blackfoot is to access Gun Barrel from the Sundance pod, but to be honest, I'd say it's way easier to just ski to the base and ride a lift up instead. Warpath is a road that comes from the Pioneer Lift. Middle Drifter and Great Escape are 2 nice groomers, albeit quite narrow. You can actually get to Great Escape from Upper Drifter. Dakota is extremely steep at the top and can get quite icy, while Crazy Horse is a little bit more consistent of a mogul run. After they join together, there is a decently lengthy runout that you'll want some speed for. Shoshone, Sundance, and Oglala aren't groomed every night, but they get groomed often enough that they don't get moguls. Of these 3, Sundance is the widest and also the steepest. Upper Oglala is just a road, but my favorite of the 3 has to be Shoshone because it's the least busy. Arapaho and Seminole start off as a bit of a road going around behind here and then split. Arapaho gets a bit flat, but Seminole has a legitimate uphill section that you're going to want to have a ton of speed for. These 2 then come back together into a pretty wide road at the bottom. Between Arapaho and Geronimo are actually some decent trees which can be accessed by taking a right off of Upper Oglala or Geronimo. Geronimo is a nice little mogul run whose entrance is a bit uphill. Where Geronimo curves skiers left here, you can also continue straight down some more bumps under the Sundance lift line. Some of the best views you'll find at Snowy Range can be seen on the skier's far right side of the uppermost section of the Sundance run. Well, that about wraps it up for Snowy Range. As always, please leave any questions down below. Stay tuned for some Wyoming Insider's guides of, well, let's call them more prominent ski resorts. Thank you all for watching. All my love, I'm out.